Hey guys, I'm Combat Craig, and today we're talking about how to get service connected quickly, understanding the process of filing a VA claim. It's a medical disability claim, and it comes down to medical evidence. That means a current diagnosis, current symptoms, and a nexus. So I'm going to walk you through a decision letter here and show you what a veteran's question was, and we're going to talk about medical literature. When to submit that, if you need to submit that, and that kind of stuff. So let's start there. Medical literature. So there's lots of medical literature out there. PubMed.org is one of the best sources of it. And these are, papers written by doctors, and other doctors can look at what other guys wrote to see if things, link together. Secondary claims, for the most part, but it has pretty much everything. So if your doctor wants to submit medical literature, if he's not confident enough to write a Nexus opinion on his own, and he wants to submit some medical literature, I would probably say go get another doctor. But if a doctor is submitting medical literature along with his independent medical opinion, and then he's kind of making an opinion about that literature, like here's my rationale, I researched this, I already know it, but on top of that, I researched it and I agree with this paper written whenever it was written. That holds what's called probative value. When we do it, we're veterans. We're considered lay people. It's lay evidence. Our, opinions and literature we find on the internet doesn't really hold that much probative value. So that's kind of where this is coming from. Want to tee it up for you. If you want to learn more about the VA claims process, check out my bootcamp at combatcraig.com. And if you need medical evidence, like a current diagnosis, your symptoms documented properly, or a nexus, check out my med team. There's a link for both of those and the email address below in the description. So here's the question. Somehow, my examining physician deduced that overcompensation for 25 years from service-connected right knee wouldn't lead to issues with the left. The VA rater ignored the medical journals cited in my claim statement. Going to see my VSO tomorrow? No, I didn't have an IMO. Any other ideas? So let's break this down. So it's not somehow the C&P examiner didn't see it. They didn't look, and they don't care. And they don't, you go in there, these C&P exams, you have no idea where they're going to go. So this guy obviously wasn't feeling your claim, and maybe he didn't like the medical literature, and he wanted to blame it on something else. So in this particular one, we're talking about service connecting the right knee to the left knee on a secondary service connection basis. They'll come up with, when you read the decision letter, it's frustrating. They come up with all sorts of reasons why they denied it. But at the end of the day, they denied it. So what do they deny it for? Either you don't have a diagnosis or you don't have a nexus. It all boils down to that. All the words in the paragraph and in the decision letter are pretty much irrelevant. Were you missing the nexus or the diagnosis? Cool. Now you know that. Now you go get a nexus or a diagnosis. So in this case, he's missing the nexus. VA claims are all about strategy. I preach and I teach strategy in my boot camp. Check it out at combatcraig.com. Links in the description. If we look through the decision letter here, we're going to find out that lack of nexus. So we're going to hop down to paragraph 2 here. Service connection may be granted for a disease or injury which resulted from a service-connected disability or was aggravated thereby. That means that you could file a secondary VA claim, and that's how this was filed. It's service connection for left knee as secondary to the service-connected disability of the right knee. I think I had it flipped around earlier, but it applies. You have one knee service connected, you're trying to get the other knee service connected secondary. Here's the sentence that you need to pay attention to. The evidence does not show that the left knee condition is related to the service-connected condition of the right knee. So they're saying there's no nexus. That's what that means. There's no medical link between the left and the right knee. And then they go on to say this is kind of like a default thing they do, nor is there any evidence of this disability during service. So they're kind of, you're filing it as a secondary. Their default position is Yeah, we didn't see the Nexus, so we're going to deny this claim on a secondary basis. And you had no complaints in your service treatment records. This is infuriating because you're not saying it has anything to do with service. It happened after service, so of course they're not going to find anything in there. But this is just kind of what the VA rater does, and CNP examiners, when they're working against you, this is kind of what they do. So if we go down a little bit more, you'll see favorable findings identified in this decision. The claimed primary disability is service-connected. We already know that because you're service-connected and you have a rating for it. But thanks, Captain Obvious, for stating the obvious. You are service-connected for the right knee. And then the left knee, you have been diagnosed for a disability. So you have already won the diagnosis on this part. So it's 100% the Nexus. And, you kind of combine that. So you have to look through here and figure it out. But it's this simple. Diagnosis or the Nexus. So if you go down to favorable findings and they say you have been diagnosed for the disability you got denied for, you don't have to worry about the diagnosis. You got it. Your problem's the Nexus. So this happens a lot. And then, kind of going back to medical literature, he submitted medical literature. And just kind of the way the VA looks at medical literature, like anybody can get it off the internet. There's medical literature for and against pretty much everything. I mean, smoking cigarettes was healthy in 1970, right? So things have changed over the years. This literature's been around for whatever, as long as the literature's been around, 100 years, right? So you'll find, something in your favor in medical literature or something against you. So I would personally stay away from medical literature, go to a doctor and get your doctor to write you a Nexus. That's how I would solve this one. And you would want to file a supplemental claim because this condition has been denied. No Nexus, right? So file a supplemental claim, and that means you can add new and relevant evidence, and that would be the Nexus. So go get a independent medical opinion or a DBQ filled out by your doctor. If he won't do it or whatever, if you can't get it, you got to get it. So check out my med team. Again, there's an email address in the description. They could help you with this one. This is an easy one for a doctor to do. And then you file a supplemental claim and, let her rip and see what happens. So like I was saying, you can submit all the medical journals and literature you like, but the VA is just not going to assign it much probative value. It has a little, it's like teeny, but you don't need teeny. I talk a lot about the tie goes to the veteran, a 50-50 tie. In this particular claim, you have a diagnosis. You didn't have the Nexus. Maybe you were trying to write the Nexus in your personal statement and thought that the medical journals would work. Well, that took you from 9% to 10%. Like it's literally zero probative value. So it wasn't even close. They just denied your claim. So you're going to need medical evidence if you want to win your VA claim. You need a current diagnosis, current symptoms, and a Nexus. If your doctor won't give these things to you, check out my med team. There's an email address in the description. It's best to skip the medical literature. I get it. You could do that to understand your disabilities and how to heal yourself somewhere down the road or whatever. But as far as VA claims go, let the doctor do the doctoring and you do the patient stuff, right? You don't need to give a doctor medical literature. They went to med school. They know all this stuff. And if they need to go look something up, they'll do it. If they want to include medical literature in addition to their independent medical opinion, they'll do that. Doctors are able to do that. They're able to do whatever they want because they're qualified to do these kinds of things, and they will have probative value. And then kind of going back, this veteran already knows he didn't submit an independent medical opinion. He probably filed the claim, educated himself after the fact, which is fine. At least you're, getting on board here, figuring out what you need, diagnosis, Nexus. So then he's like, yeah, I don't think I have an independent medical opinion. I need to get one. And that's exactly right. Need to get an independent medical opinion. So if you want to save time, you could do it up front before you file your claim. If you want to drag it out a little bit longer, you file the claim without the medical evidence, and then you could go back and clean it up with a supplemental claim. But that could add 6 months onto this thing. Yes, you're going to preserve your effective date and you're going to get back pay and all that kind of stuff. But it's just extra stress you don't need. You're filing a claim, you're hoping to win. Then you go through I got denied. submit all the medical evidence up front. And, there's no guarantees that the VA rater and the CNP examiner are going to do anything different. They ignore medical evidence. They overlook it all the time and stuff like that. But it would be a little easier challenge. You do it in a higher level review if you provided all the medical evidence up front, but that's not the case here. So that's what I would do. Check out my bootcamp if you want to learn more about the VA claims process. And again, there's an email address to my med team in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.